Hey, if you're here, then you're here early because I put the wrong time on the invite. But anyway, coming up on the show today, meet the new boss D&D, also new artificer, new dragon book, bad news for Paizo, and more. And whoops, I don't have the thing ready to go. But this show is casual, so that's what you get.
Are you ready to get casual? Grab your favorite adult beverage or combustible plant and join us for our roundtable TTRPG discussion. Oh yeah, it's time for Casual Friday. And now, here are your hosts.
Hey, what's up? JIM on the MIC, and over there is Brad Wolf. Down there is Ryan Doyle. You might know
What?
these people from the YouTubes. And this show is Casual Friday, where we talk about the newest news in the tater pig industry. But first, I got a tease coming up. If I set the time right on this one, coming up hopefully in exactly 90 minutes will be our first part of our 4-part Daggerheart miniseries. Might tell you a little bit more about that coming up later in the show. But when it comes to news. First thing, oh no, I'm going to have to reset. Somebody vamp for a minute. How you guys doing?
Hot, fresh news coming at you. You did the MC DJ thing, and I felt like really called on to improv. It's not my strong suit, honestly. I'm more of a writer than an improvisational, but
You're not an extemp guy.
I can spit lines. It's been a while.
I got game. The new boss of Dungeons and Dragons is Dan Ayub. We had heard that Jen Lanzillo was leaving, and the new guy's named Dan Ayub. And the first thing I ever knew about this guy, I saw this picture of him, and he's Canadian, so I know he's probably nice. But when you look at that guy definitely, when he was in high school, snapped a naked butt with a wet towel in the boys' locker room at least a time or two. He snaps towels. That guy snaps towels. But the
It might just be the focal length of the lens creating that effect.
you think so?
No, I don't. He says he played D&D growing up, but he has to. So I don't know. We'll find out.
So are you implying that he has a little bit of bro? Is that what you're saying?
He says, I mean, he's Canadian, so he can only have a certain percentage. But he said, so he posted this on LinkedIn, blah, 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 the challenge of building a publishing and development group, etc. Like any other game, D&D has influenced my life and career the most. I got hooked when I received the basic starter set, etc., etc. And then here's an interesting tidbit. So what happened today? We shifted our structure internally, and D&D moved to a full franchise model, meaning everything, books, video games, film, and TV, everything touching the franchise lives under one roof. The impact here cannot be overstated. This is massive for D&D and will allow a strong, coordinated, and well-funded approach for the franchise, and most importantly for us, the fans. Now, when I first read that, my first thought was, what do you mean you're bringing everything in-house? Does that mean that Baldur's Gate 4 is going to be made by people in a room at Wizards of the Coast? What do you mean by in-house? Then I started doing a little bit of research on it, and I came across this on Reddit. IRL Corpo Drone here, let me translate. Previously, WotC had a team that did movie deals for the whole company, same for books, games, etc. So if someone wanted to license D&D for a video game, they didn't talk with someone close to the D&D team, just someone responsible for licensing video games. The person then may or may not talk to the D&D team about the deal, but really wasn't required to do so. WotC is creating an internal team that now just does D&D. And I think this is something that is likely to be very widely misunderstood. Misinterpreted among people. I'm picturing the thumbnails already, if you know what I mean. Like I put this in a Discord group that we're all a part of, and right away somebody had that take of like, franchise, bringing everything in-house, that's the opposite of what they've been saying they're going to do. But that's not what franchising means in this case. Franchising means before licensing deals were done by a suit at Hasbro, now they're going to be done by a suit at WotC. And that's all this is. They're saying that now if they're going to, whoever makes Baldur's Gate 4 isn't going to be done the deal through Hasbro's lawyers, it's going to be done with WotC's lawyers, as if that's somehow different. But they're saying that it's a very big deal. So thoughts
Right.
on this, guys?
So I think this is, this lingo, right? This corporate lingo can be misinterpreted in much the same way the D&D is under monetized comment really upset a bunch of people. Where I think the under monetized comment was not as inflammatory as people took it, right? From my perspective, anyway. Like, obviously D&D is under monetized. You can buy 3 books and play it for 10 years with 1,000 different people if you had different people at your game every week, right? So those other 999 people aren't, buying anything from Wizards of the Coast, right? So, I think a lot of people took that under monetized comment a little, too, alarming. And this is a similar kind of thing. Like, people can run with this, right? But as far as does it make a difference having a suit at WotC versus a suit at Hasbro handle these license situations? Maybe, at least in some small areas. I've mentioned this before. I have a friend who worked on the Dungeons and Dragons movie. And we all know that the Dungeons and Dragons movie did a really good job of trying to get D&D right. But my friend shared with me that there were definitely times they had more questions, and they had a hard time getting answers from somebody who was knowledgeable about the game. So, like, the people working on the film had additional questions about how should this go, how should this look, those type of questions, because they wanted it to be accurate to the game, and there were significant delays in getting a response back, and presumably because it's being handled, that was being handled by a suit at Hasbro, that license deal. So maybe having the suit in-house at WotC, improves communication in those sort of situations where a licensee has questions about the D&D property. Maybe. Fingers crossed.
I mean, I'm hopeful about it, at risk of being accused of being a WotC shill, because I don't think everything is automatically awful every time they say or do anything. But they clearly had some organizational issues. They were working on a VTT that was like kind of seemed like was going to be the linchpin, right, of the new D&D 5.0 era. And those people didn't know that there were people down the hall working on a VTT. So like there needs to be some sort of person on the top being like, yeah, everybody get on the same page. I think maybe we see fewer rakes stepped on if there is a better structure to this organization. Thank you, sir. We shall see. We shall see. I mean, a lot of it's going to be, those people deciding like what gets to go on a lunchbox and a T-shirt, and how many Mind Flayer bobbleheads are going to get produced in any given, company. But and that's all kinds of stuff that isn't going to affect me too much. But I think maybe we have having a more cohesive brand might be a better product coming to us, even us few who are only really playing the game and not trying to embrace it as a lifestyle brand.
Right. In fact, maybe that if they had used that term instead of franchise, like referred to it as the brand or the lifestyle brand, right? Like use that kind of language. That's something that the casual, person understands versus, franchise. Because I mean, typically when you say franchise, we're thinking like, I can go open my own McDonald's if I have the franchise rights.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's ever worked for a franchise. He's like, someone's going to be in charge of the binder of like what can and cannot happen. Okay, yeah, I mean that's a big part of what a franchise is, and they do sub out the rights to their stuff, but like, yeah, franchise seems like a weird word, and I do think a lot of people on the internet are like, franchise equals McDonald's equals junk food. I'm mad. I'm angry. I want French fries now, and I'm confused.
Yeah. Wants French fries, is confused, is a pretty good descriptor for most Americans. So to sum up this segment here, ignore the word franchise. It's confusing. It doesn't mean anything in this context. Just completely ignore the word franchise. What the guy was saying is that it doesn't mean that when he says we're bringing everything in-house, he means that everything is deals to license things. That's what they're bringing in-house. Everything is still staying out. It's kind of like that weird thing like OEM in the computer world means it's original equipment manufacturer, but it actually means the exact opposite of that. It's a reseller. An OEM is a resold part, which I never understood how a thing could mean the opposite of what its acronym says it means. But anyway.
Marketing.
So moving on, earlier this week, we've been hearing about it for a while, but Dragon Delves finally came out. The new anthology from Wizards of the Coast. Ryan has got the alt cover. I've got the
somewhere. It's beside me here.
I got the regular cover here. And Ryan and I both have reviews up, which you can watch, and we both had different, kind of not exactly the same take, proof that we are two different people. But I think that it's this book is like, look at that spine. There's no that flare thing at the top or bottom. Like, it's a different font used. If you look at the inside of this, no drop cap headers. The style is they've gone from cream pages to white. It's like a different font. Very, very different. And it's a new era. And if you want the TLDR, Brian and I both came to the conclusion that some of the adventures are good and some are not, which is pretty much how all of these anthologies work.
Yep.
Exactly. And I think that's the strength of them, honestly. And I did not. It's funny. I came out saying one of them was maybe my least favorite, and that made your top 4. I think was one of your favorites. And like, yeah, my headline for these is like, yeah, especially this one. There's a lot of different kinds of things in here. So I don't know who you are on the other side of that. I mean, I know most of you in chat. What's up, guys? But there's a very good chance you're going to really respond to some of them, and others you're going to bounce off of because it's a variety pack. And ooh, that's my thing. Also, shout out to John Double Crit Fail. He's got a video as well on Dragon Delves, and he ran some of it, so he actually is speaking from experience.
Nice. I gotta check that one out.
There was one thing I wanted to point out, that this is the first 5e adventure that comes with quick play maps, which is a new thing on the Maps VTT. Now, I think, haven't you been able to do something like this on Roll20? If you buy an adventure there, you also get tokens that go on the map where they're supposed to be. Because basically what this is, I'm going to hit that, and then we're going to go full screen there. Nope, that's not working.
I refuse to show you.
Refuse to show me full screen. But what's happening is now when you get Dragon Delves, for a while now, when you buy an adventure on D&D Beyond, it comes with the JPEGs of the maps already ported over into Maps for you in a nice little organized layout. So you can click on your adventure, click on the chapter or whatever. And now they come with Fog of War and tokens already pre-installed, and nicely all the tokens are loaded invisible, so you can reveal them whenever you want. And I'm pretty sure that you've been able to do this on other systems for a while, but now this is officially with on D&D Beyond. So it is. I know people have strong opinions about walled gardens and stuff, but it's nice that it comes with that. It's saves you time.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, Jim, are you using your main mic? Just because things sound a little off. But one of the things this makes me think of, right, is maybe this is why Maps won out over the the Stigl VTT, because they're able to update Maps far faster than you could with the 3D VTT, the sigil, right? And this way they can keep pace with the production of the book, so that when a new book comes out, they have this available for the new book. That could very well be one of the reasons why maps won out over sigil.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm hopeful that we're going to see. I don't know. I was afraid of Sigil, honestly, because if it was as cool as it was almost as cool as they said it was going to be a problem for other things, right? And the fact that it failed, I'm kind of happy about. But they, I don't know, spent how much time and money developing this thing that no one's ever going to use, that they could have spent that on, I don't know, more dope stuff, more art in
Marketing
these
to a
books.
broader audience, so we all have more people to play with, and more game masters to run,
Mm,
right? That would have been a nice use of
absolutely.
resources.
I don't know why, but my main microphone doesn't want to work. 1 second.
But yeah, so Ryan, how much have you used maps?
Zero.
Zero. Okay.
Zero. I mean, I use maps lowercase m.
Right.
But yeah, I'm an Owlbear Rodeo guy. Half of my games are in person. I really gravitate towards lo-fi stuff. If I could run everything in Theater of the Mind, I would. 5e doesn't lend itself to that after like level 1. It's like, am I 30 feet away or 35? All right, get out the tokens. We'll figure this out. But no, I am not a huge user of maps or D&D Beyond. I find D&D Beyond pretty difficult and janky right now in the new age, where I have to like turn off all the 2014 stuff and it comes on anyway. I'm in charge now. Well, now I'm hosting. I know
Well,
Nacho's in here. Nacho is a big maps user.
the my question was, because I don't run online. I've played online, but the most I've played of all the different ones online is Owlbear Rodeo. So if I was going to run games online, it would be either maps or Owlbear Rodeo, because I'm with you. I think the more streamlined, more efficient approach is just way more time time effective, right? Um, and so I think I think that's another reason why maps won out over the Sigil 3D VTT. Um, you know, because it's just a far easier learning curve. It's far less expensive to access. You don't need a supercomputer to run it. It just seems like maps makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Okay, I think thanks for vamping. I think my microphone issues are sorted out now. I have used maps. I used it. I kind of played with it in the beginning, because at the beginning it was like I would use it if it had this and this and this and this, and they've slowly added those things over time. Their fog of war system is really nice. It's super easy to wipe away fog, to add fog. It's a lot quicker than the way Roll20 or Owlbear does it. It's really nice if everyone is already using D&D Beyond. It's nice because on D&D Beyond, if you take a collection of character sheets, you can link them in a campaign, and then from that campaign you can share books. And then you can also easily share a map. You can be like, okay, I want to add everyone from my campaign to this map. And then when you load up the map, you can put their tokens on there, and you don't have to, like, on Roll20, you have to assign token access to different things, because the Roll20 doesn't know what a token is. It's just a JPEG. So you have to say, this user can access this JPEG. This JPEG has a 20 in this field, which is going to equal hit points, and has a 40 in this field, which equals height. And so if you work on D&D Beyond, all that stuff is integrated. Like, everyone gets to control their own token, plus they can't control other tokens, which you can't do on Owlbear. Owlbear, everybody can touch every token. And that's just the way it works. But then on maps, so yeah, and then if everyone is rolling on D&D Beyond, it shows their dice rolling on the screen. So it has, like, if you're fully in the D&D Beyond ecosystem, there's no reason to not use maps. There's, like, if you're fully in D&D Beyond, using Roll20 is a step away because there's hurdles. You have to use the Chrome plugins to pull your dice in from D Beyond to Roll20. I use it in the campaign I play in. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a Chrome plugin, and it's always breaking, and there's different bugs with it. So it's always a big pain when it took us to import it. So if you wanted like clean and simple, and Maps is the way to go. And
I'm gonna make
Go
a
ahead.
video about this one day to just like clarify my thinking, right? Like I don't even know if I'll publish it, but I'll write the script one day. But like there's a line between stuff, yeah, and just in
Always.
general, as a rule. There's a line between, oh, this makes my life easier, and this has removed me from the processes of the game too much, that it no longer feels like D&D to me. And D&D Beyond is right. Different features on D&D Beyond are like right on that line where it's like, okay, player, what do you do? And they're like 34. And it's like, wait, no, that's not what that's not the good stuff for me. That's necessary, but now that is the computer has done the fun stuff and stands in the way of the fun stuff. Yeah, and for some of us, the minis are the fun stuff and the terrain.
Yeah, that's definitely for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want the computer to do too much for me in general, right? Like character creation, awesome, cool. Look up a spell easily. Yeah, D&D Beyond do a better job at that. I don't want the system to play the game for me. And a lot of, I think, people from video game companies like Microsoft are pushing the hobby that way. And maybe I'm an old man yelling at clouds at this point, but
I just realized that You Dare adventure I ran with the Temple of the Moon Priest adventure. Did that ever get? We didn't put that out, did we?
I don't. Nope.
I need to find that video.
Actual play coming someday. Someday. The problem is Brad ran it, so that means Brad's responsible for editing it. So we might see it. Who knows? But we want to thank you for running You Dare. That's awesome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. You Dare is a perfect game for little kids. Super easy to pick up and understand. Just play and have fun.
Yeah. Well, the reason I thought of it, because I completely forgot about that. I do need to find the video and edit it. I completely forgot about it. But the reason I bring that up is because we're running You Dare. We don't need Owlbear Rodeo or anything like that, right? So when we were running online, I just used a still image of the dungeon, right? And we basically ran it theater of the mind plus a picture of the dungeon. That's pretty much how we ran that. And that was so much fun and so smooth and easy. Yeah, I've definitely, shifted my mindset to more streamlined, easier rule sets with more, more theater of the mind and more, at the table play versus all the bells and whistles of, trying to do 3.5 or Pathfinder or 5e, 5.5. I'm definitely shifting away from the more robust systems to the more old school streamlined systems in my mind.
Our friend Bob of the World Builder said something I think was very prophetic once. He said that if you can't fit all of the rules in one book, it's too complicated. And I disagreed with him when he said that, but I've been coming around to it. I think he's right. And also, I want to say, Mr. Welch, expressing positive opinions about role-playing games is suspicious behavior. You might need to report to your local investigation center just for a routine checkup. There's a paranoia joke for the old people in the crowd. We've got a lot to talk about today. We got to move on. Plus, also in about 65 minutes. No, 65 minutes. Yeah. We're going to be debuting part 1 of our Daggerheart actual play, and you should stick around and watch it. We will, to a certain extent, all be there in the chat at various times, chatting about what happened. And so, but moving on after the quick start maps, the next thing that we are going to talk about is, you might remember from all those UAs about the Forge of the Artificer. Well, they've officially announced that it's 112 pages long, which is which most of that is going to be taken up by the billion subclasses, so the Artificer can be everything. And it's a little cheaper. It's $30, but is this the one that comes out in October?
That's a good question.
I don't know when this one comes out. Or is this the one that comes out in August?
Starter set's supposed to be August. And they haven't said anything about changing timelines, which is suspicious to me, because everybody else is having drama and trouble, but maybe they brought that in-house too.
I thought the starter set was October. Oh,
well, maybe I got it twisted.
I don't know. Chat, tell us when is stuff coming out. But there's not really a whole lot to say about that. I'm sure I will take a look at it when it finally does come out, but I don't really care about the 2025 Artificer. I don't care.
Are you not an Eberron fan, Jim?
I think, well, we've had this conversation before. I'll do the rant again. It's about time. I've tried to read the Eberron book multiple times, and every time I get to the houses and I see that there's 12 houses, I quit, because 12 factions is too many factions. It's too many factions. 12, there's a reason why phone numbers are 7 digits. 12 is too long. It's too many factions. And when I complained about that in a video, somebody commented, well, there's really only 3 or 4 of them that are like important. And I was like, that's even worse, because I have to learn 12 and only a few of them are important. So that's my Eberron rant. The idea of the world sounds super cool, though.
Mm-hmm. The pulpy science fantasy kind of stuff.
Yeah, take magic, advance it into the future, see what its natural ends would be. I think that's super interesting, but I'm not going to learn your 12 houses. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, the Eberron book is August, and the starter set is September. I just pulled it up.
Okay.
And then November is supposed to be the Forgotten Realms Player's Guide. And the Forgotten Realms Adventure Guide. That's the 2-book set.
Copy that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All right, so speaking of things that are coming out, something that's not coming out, segue there, that's a good one. So Starfinder and Pathfinder books are not going to be available in the big box stores because of a thing that you probably heard about last week. It was very big news when Stephen Glicker from Roll for Combat put out a video about Diamond Comic Distributors, a big distributor that has gone bankrupt. And in order to resolve the bankruptcy, they apparently get to keep all the stock from all the consignment or distributors, the people like Stephen Glicker, people who make TTRPG books and use distributors like Diamond to get them into stores and places. Well, I don't know. Apparently, it sounds crazy to me that they're bankrupt, and so the individual people get stiffed. But I guess apparently at some point in the past, a very smart lawyer convinced a court that it would be worse for the company to lose the money than the individuals to lose the money. So that's what happens. But so Paizo is one of the companies that's getting hosed in this, and so as a result, you won't be able to get a bunch of their upcoming releases in big stores like chain stores. So your Barnes and Noble, your Amazon, your KB Books and Toys, your Walden
KB.
Books.
Walden Books. Oh, goodness.
You will not find these at Walden Books. Now, you will still be able to get them at friendly local game stores and also directly from Paizo. But if all of a sudden a bunch of Paizo products are not available at big box stores, does that hurt them long term? What do you guys think?
I think it does, and I think and there's also two fronts to this conflict, right? Because not only are they less visible to the casual player by not being in the big box stores, there's also the fact that whoever deals with Diamond's bankruptcy can take all the product that Diamond already has. So there's, in this case, we're talking about Paizo. There's a whole bunch of Pathfinder and Starfinder books that are in Diamond warehouses, and then Diamond, as they go bankrupt, can sell that off to retail outlets like Ollie's. Remember when all that D&D stuff hit Ollie's for like super cheap? So they can, so that is actually going to flood the market with a lot of inexpensive Paizo products, and of course people are going to buy them because they're going to be super cheap at these discount warehouses and discount stores. So not only do you lose access to a whole branch of your market, the big box stores, you also now have effectively, faced with a competitor, right, of super cheap versions of your products that are going to be in, discount stores.
Yeah, it's interesting. Someone who goes to shop at an FLGS, they probably know why they're there. But just a civilian, an average human walking down Barnes and Noble, and they go through see the game aisle and they see all the Dungeons and Dragons books. Of course, that's not a surprise. But if they see books from Paizo right next to the Dungeons and Dragons books, they see a Pathfinder book right next to the D&D book, that legitimizes Pathfinder in a way that appearing at game stores doesn't. If it's in Target or if it's in Barnes and Noble right next to D&D, one could conclude that it is of comparable quality to D&D, right? And somebody might even go, "Ooh, I like the art on that book better," and so they buy that one. Like, "Oh, that cover's way cooler," and they buy that one. Now, does that mean that appearing in box stores is what takes down D&D? No, but it'll have an impact.
Yeah. Well, and also, the if this affects Paizo, right, and there's another aspect that could also be hurting Paizo in our current kind of transition, as a lot of people are moving away from D&D. With all, we all know why people are leaving D&D right now, because you have all these other new games out there: Shadowheart, Daggerheart, the Draw Steel, right? We've got all these other new games that are competing for the RPG space, and we've talked a lot about how that could impact D&D sales, but I think it can also impact Paizo sales, right? Maybe even more so, because D&D has the brand recognition that the Paizo products don't quite have.
So Roll for Combat's taking Diamond to court.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a wild situation to me where you have my product, you have gone chapter 11, and you can sell my product and now not honor our contract and give me my money. Like, it's just give me my stuff back. All right, sorry, you're bankrupt. Give me my stuff back. So we'll see what happens. My thoughts are with Steven. I mean, he's a smart dude, and a creative guy. So I think he's gonna land on his feet when all is said and done. But like, what an impossible situation!
Yeah,
It's
really
wild.
sucks.
Someone's selling your book for less, and
when I was in my late 20s, I worked for this software company where we made software for court reporters. We made captioning and court reporting software. It was a wild place to work. But anyway, the company was doing terrible. And I remember we were going to get into refurbishing old computers to prop up the business. And I remember the boss looking me in the eye and going, "Don't ever get into hardware." And I remember that because we got into hardware and things went bad. He's like, "You got to have a place to store it, and then you got to pay people to move it, and you got to secure it and make sure it doesn't get messed with, and you got to pay people to move it around and deliver it." And so I just always don't get into hardware. I just remember that.
Well, and we know that that's part of the problem when it came to why TSR failed back in the day, right? Is that they weren't making their own books. Right, they were a game company, not a publishing company. So, that's a long story of how that all like collapsed in on itself. But that's part of the issue when you're producing actual physical books, versus like a lot of the indie creators who are just putting out print on demand or PDFs of their products, right? So it's the whole distribution business is challenging. And having been a comic book nerd for most of my life, I also know that comic book shops have hated Diamond for decades. They've had the stranglehold on the distribution for comic books for years, and it's just been a chronic complaint of comic shop owners how difficult Diamond was to work with.
Yeah. I feel their pain, but we need to move on. Okay, sorry, I just got all mixed up for a second.
One last point,
Go
real
ahead,
quick.
Brian.
This
Yeah.
also kind of makes Wizards of the Coast look smart, because remember a while back we were all trying to figure out why WotC got departed from Penguin Random House. Remember, Penguin Random House was distributing WotC's books, and WotC brought it all in house. And maybe they saw the writing on the wall that like stuff like this was about to happen with whether it was Diamond or Penguin or whoever, right?
That's true. Oh, I just remembered why I was glitching out there for a second. Is because I was going to say something and then I blanked on it when we were talking about the printing deals. TSR had a historically bad printing deal. That's probably taught in law schools, where they made a deal with the printer. It was an exclusive deal where they couldn't print anywhere else, and they also couldn't stop them from raising prices. So that's what happened. The printer raised the prices, TSR couldn't pay, and they were hosed. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Bunch of idiots. Anyway, speaking of idiots, now's the part of the show where we do a little catch up, where we talk to each other and say hey. And I want to tell you that coming up in less than an hour, in about 53 minutes, we're going to be debuting the first part of our 4-part Daggerheart actual play mini series. And it's not like a 4-hour actual play. It's reasonable. It's like 2:20, 2 hours 20, 2:30 max. Yeah, all the episodes are reasonably short. And we keep it tight. We completed the 4th of our 4 sessions earlier this week and wrapped up our Daggerheart mini campaign. No spoilers, but I had a fantastic time. And what do you guys got going on?
Well, I just want to say the Daggerheart thing was incredible. I was not particularly excited for Daggerheart, and Jim has won me over. I know I just went on that whole explanation about how I'm moving away from crunchy games at my home table, but I thoroughly enjoyed playing Daggerheart, which is a little more crunchy than the games I'm currently running, Shadowdark, right? But it was just a really great play experience, and the combat was very cinematic, which is what it was promised to do, and it delivered. I was really impressed with Daggerheart. It was really fun, and I'm excited to go back and watch these episodes because I had a lot of fun playing them. And I hope they come across on video as well as they did in my head, because in my head it was freaking awesome.
All caps, I want review of the duality dice system, Vorpal Bite. I like it. It does take longer. It did take me a session or two to acclimate to it. It's very hard for me to remember what rolling a d20 and adding a number felt like when I first started, to tell you the truth. But it was an adjustment. It did feel like, wait, which is which, and what does it mean? And I think it's a big mistake I think the saves maybe should have been d20s or something. The save being the same thing, but now hope and fear don't matter. Actually, it made it a little bit harder still to onboard. But once I got acclimated to it, love it, because it is generating this momentum in a way that I have not seen a game do. And I know they lifted it. I think they lifted it from 13th Age, right? Or Cypher. Somebody else uses it. It's not original to Daggerheart, and I do like that they cite their sources. But it is generating meta currency for the dungeon master and the player, which I was suspicious of a dungeon master meta currency being like shackling. And I mean, I haven't run it yet. Jim, you could speak more eloquently about that, but it did really make combat feel like combat. It made it super cinematic. You don't know what's going to happen next. You're not sitting there waiting for your turn to come around. Every roll of the dice feels significant because it can turn the tide of battle. There's a couple other mechanisms that do that as well. You guys got to watch that final episode. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but whoa boy, it's powerful. But yeah, once I got used to it, I like it. I do. I don't think they should have applied it to saves. Would be my like criticism to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, save should be 1d20 plus 1d4 instead, because you get the same range.
The one thing that I figured out for myself to help me is when I made because it's in Daggerheart, it's called a reaction roll, right? It's basically like a saving throw in D&D.
Yeah.
When I made a reaction roll, I used the same color dice instead of the two different colored dice, and that helped me make the distinction in my head when I rolled two dice of the same color. Then I wasn't in that mindset of thinking hope and fear when I was doing the reaction roll. But as far as to Brian's point about the momentum, there were definitely combats where we rolled a lot of fear, and those combats were very frustrating. And when that happens early on, we're like, ooh, I don't know if I really like this system. Like Mike, who we were playing with, had some questions about the combat system after that first or second combat where we rolled a whole bunch of fear. But the more we played and we had combats where we rolled a bunch of hope, right? And it's made those combats feel distinct, right? So, and then there were other combats where we kind of rolled a pretty even balance of fear and hope. So the momentum can swing, right, to kind of a grindy, oh my gosh, this is not that fun, but that translates into the storytelling, right? Of like when we were rolling a lot of fear, once we got used to the game system, looking back on it now, I see that as, oh, that was a very just tense combat, right? Because once we had the experience where we rolled a bunch of hope, right, that was more of an easy combat. But that momentum makes combats, gives variety to combats, I guess is what my point is. Go ahead, Jim.
I can speak to those two things from the GM side. That managing fear in combat were during the playtest days were two things I was really iffy about. But now that Daggerheart's done and I've run it, completed, I love both of those things. I think it's the best combat system there is. It's better. It's like popcorn combat, but better. Popcorn combat is real back and forth and fun, but it's too gamey. It's too easy to strategize above table with popcorn combat by you picking who goes next or that kind of stuff. But the way Daggerheart, it's like popcorn combat, but instead of choosing who goes next, the dice choose who goes next, which seems like what it should be anyway. The dice choose who's up next, and it can go from the DM side to the player side just like that. Things can turn on a dime in Daggerheart combat. And managing the fear, I wasn't sure about that because it felt like it was going to be too gamey to me. It felt like, conniving game masters can use this to screw over the players. And then I was like, oh no, that's the point. That's what you're supposed to do with it. And also the way that managing fear matters, because you can see, I don't want to spoil anything in the episode coming up, but there's a direct correlation between the players, a thing going bad and accumulating a bunch of fear. And then later on a combat being tougher because of that. It was like instant karma relationship with like, you guys failed to do this thing, which gave me a bunch of fear, which means then when combat happens, now I have a bunch of fear. So I'm going to throw everything at you all at once to make this combat as overwhelming as possible because I got all this fear. And like if the players had done really well on the earlier challenge and I didn't have as much fear, that combat wouldn't have been as hard. So it's like in Daggerheart, the game master has really incredible ways to apply the brakes or put their foot on the gas. And in ways that people do in D&D. It's not there in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but people do it anyway. It's
Right.
like
Yep.
it's like you like upbeats and downbeats, right? When things are going great, you throw a combat at them. When they've had 2 combats, maybe that bad guy decides to flee. At rules as written, he probably wouldn't flee, but you want to ease up. And so that's not in the rules, but that's what people do. But in Daggerheart, like, it's coded in the rules. Like, if you
Yeah.
want to put your foot on the gas, this is how you do it. If you want to let up, this is how you do it. And I love that.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was about to say, Jim, is like the hope and fear mechanics, do the pacing for you in a lot of ways. And so
Yeah.
you don't have to learn this extra skill set. Like in D&D, you have to learn the game. And then there's this skill set to be able to DM well, where you have to learn about upbeats and downbeats and pacing and storytelling. And like with Daggerheart, the hope and fear mechanics do a lot of that for you, which is great.
Because one, it takes some
Absolutely.
onus off the dungeon master, and two, it clears up some mental bandwidth to do creative stuff with the things that you're doing. Just real quick to shout out some questions in chat. Doesn't Rolling with Fear in combat shift the narrative control to the GM? Yes, it does, Mike M. How often do respectful players get out of combat turn? There's this very interesting thing that happens. So what we know each other, right? There's this like impulse to like jerk proof every game, which I appreciate, but then you end up making games for jerks. I've fallen into that trap myself
Mhm.
on a weekly basis almost. But so Brad and I and Mike know each other pretty well at this point, and like in a TTRPG space, we respect each other. We were pretty good at sharing the spotlight. I found myself hesitating to take a turn sometimes because if I roll with fear, I blew it, and I gave Jim I gave the monster the go again. So like, if Brad was gonna roll with hope, then I could go after him and do stuff. But like, there was a lot of I'm gonna unless you tell me not to, I'm gonna shoot this guy, and if it doesn't go well, it might be real bad for all of us. And like, you're always in that situation, and that might maybe sounds bad to some listeners, but like, I really love that. Like, it does feel like every roll of the die matters, and like, there's sessions in D&D where none of them matter, and every time you touch the dice, it's important.
Yeah, a lot of people have brought up that because of Daggerheart, when it's the player's turn, anybody can go when they want to. A lot of people have brought up like, oh well, that selfish players are going to abuse that, and I mean, selfish players are a problem in any TTRPG. It's not solo to Daggerheart. There is a way. There is a more popcorn initiative kind of style in Daggerheart where you can use tokens, which is what they did in the playtest, which they got rid of it as an official rule because it's kind of fiddly, but where at the beginning of combat, everyone gets a certain number of tokens, and you can spend a token to take an action. And once you spend all your tokens, you don't get any more until everyone has spent all their tokens. So it's just a way to make sure everyone gets a turn. But I don't feel like it's necessary. If somebody is hogging the spotlight, you can, as the GM, you could just call on somebody. You could just say, "Hey, Ryan, you haven't gone in a while. What would you like to do?" And just offer the player the spotlight. And if they say no, then maybe they don't want to. But of course, if anyone's ever feeling bullied at a table, that's a problem that transcends system.
Right. Well, and you can also spend the fear to interrupt too, right? As a GM. And to that point, there were times where I was playing the sorcerer, right? And very blaster kind of character. And you know, I would dump a bunch of hope in order to do a bunch of damage. And then, I just turned to Ryan and Mike and said, "Are you guys cool if I do that again? Because I have enough hope that I can just do that whole attack again and dump a bunch more damage on this thing." And you guys were both like, "Yeah, go for it." And it's just simple communication, right? And I think that's like Jim just said, that's relevant to every game you play.
Yeah, it's no different. Players can hog the spotlight. In D&D, it happens more in role play. It happens in the parts of the game where there is no initiative, where the game doesn't force you to go in turns. Out of initiative, that's when selfish players hog the spotlight.
If you need a talking stick or a conch shell to make the conversation fair, then like your problem is not inside the game you're playing. Your problem's at the table above the game. Um, and it does. We play fairly low level Daggerheart, and even so, there were some synergistic opportunities, let's say, between the characters coming up. And I imagine as things advance and we developed more system mastery, we could lean into more of that. So it would make sense in certain situations for somebody to go rather than somebody else. And the flexibility of not being in an initiative order increased the strategy as well.
Nacho, I did not use an abacus, unfortunately. We were playing online, so I just wrote it in the notebook. But when I start running, I'm probably going to start running Daggerheart at my friendly local game store very soon, and I'm probably going to pick up an abacus. I didn't I didn't intend for this segment to turn into 20 minutes of us discussing Daggerheart's merits, but that's what happened.
Chad had questions. They want us to know.
Yep.
So we're here
Chat
for.
had questions. Yeah, and we'll can answer more questions about the game during the live stream. I will be there I think for most of it. I might have to take off for a little bit, but I'll be there for most of it. We need to move on because in about 38 minutes that episode is premiering, and we still have a couple more things that we need to talk about. First is our roundtable discussion, and now I'm going to do a little story time from GM Jim here. So I picked up this copy of Rifts, which is a game that everyone watching this live stream right now has definitely heard of, right? If you're watching the live stream, you've almost certainly heard of Rifts. Have you played it? Probably not. I recently got this book again, and it was been a long time since I had a copy, and I was flipping through it, and boy, is it complicated. This was the TTRPG era of acronyms. Everything is SDC, MDC, OCC, SRA, FLI, and I'm like, why I have to? It's so much mental math required just to read a page. You have to parse all these and translate all these acronyms. It's so confusing. But anyway, that's not my point of this roundtable. Isn't to bag on Rifts, but picking up a copy of this book and flipping through it, and brought back some memories. I learned to play tabletop role-playing games at my older brother's knee. Not literally. My older brother ran Dungeons and Dragons for me, and the way he ran D&D, he hand-waved a lot of stuff. But it was still fun. I didn't realize, until much, much later how much he hand-waved. But then a few years passed, and my friend Iggy, that's not his real name, but that's what we called him, so his name was Iggy. He ran Rifts for all of us when we were like 16, just a bunch of pot-smoking, miscreant teenagers. He ran Rifts for us, and I didn't realize till recently that Iggy ignored most of the rules in this book. I don't remember ever hearing about SDC, MDC, any of that stuff. But Iggy hand-waved a lot of stuff too, but he hand-waved different stuff. Because I remember the first time that I played with him, we were our group, like the 4 or 5 of us, and we were in a situation where we had to get to the top of a cliff. We were at the bottom of the cliff, and we had to get to the top. This was the kind of thing that my brother would have hand-waved. He would have just said, okay, you can climb up the cliff. But no, Iggy said, okay, you're at the bottom of the cliff. How do you get to the top? And we were all like, what do you mean? He was like, well, you're at the bottom. How do you get to the top? How do you do it? And my friend Danny goes, I have a jetpack. And then Iggy said, all right, Danny, you're fine. How are the rest of you getting to the top? And I was like, that meme of the guy. That was like opened my mind right then, because it was a completely different game mastering experience from how my brother had done it. Because Iggy, hand waving like hit points and damage, that was boring. He hand waved that. What was interesting to him was problem solving. So that's what he had his focus on. So, story time concluded. Now I get to the point of this conversation, which is like, what system neutral elements do you bring to any and every TTRPG? Like, what is your style? Because remember, just a few weeks ago, Brad said something that I thought was pretty prophetic, where he said, if he runs, so I'm gonna, Brad, you know what I'm saying. I'm gonna say it wrong. You say it.
Mhm. Oh, like if I run Dungeons and Dragons and Jim runs Dungeons and Dragons, there can be a very different play experience, even though we're playing the same game. Where if I run Dungeons and Dragons and then I run Monsters of the Week, those two experiences might actually be very similar because of my game master style, even though I'm running two different games for different people, right?
Exactly. So, no matter what the system is, the game master, I think, brings a very large percentage of it. I don't know. We could argue about what that percentage is.
Mhm.
Probably depends on the system and the game master, but the game master brings a significant percentage. So, I wanted to ask you two, what do you bring to every system?
For me, I those skills, those soft skills we talked about, like um the sharing the spotlight, the uh, pacing, the upbeats and downbeats. I use those no matter what game I'm playing, right? And like I just mentioned, Monsters of the Week, for example. Monsters of the Week actually has some guidance in their book. That's actually a really good read for game masters. Um, the Monsters of the Week has some good guidance on those things, and the system actually supports those things in a few ways. Uh, but those are the things that I bring to every game I play, and that's my DM style, and that's because I've done a lot of work over the years to try to be a good game master, and those are the things that I now lean on, no matter what system I play.
I try to keep focus on what's important and like maintain a willingness to hand wave what isn't. Um, I think a defining feature of my play style or game master style is like a almost like esoteric faith in the dice. I I roll in the open. In most systems, there's reasons not to for something specific. Yeah, I mean, where I try to keep it fun. I try to make that the point. But I have an understanding and like a relationship with chaos. Like I relinquish my absolute control. Like I'll make jokes that I am the god of this world when people are really coming at me, like I don't know, pulling some rule clarification up on Twitter. Nah. But the dice are another player at the table, another game master at the table
Mhm.
for me. And that, like, I'm sure some people right now are like, wow, that's bad. That's just chaos. But like for me, the dice are almost never wrong as long as you approach them correctly. And that means with deference. If you ask them a question every time, then yeah, you just get noise. You get noise. You can't call for rolls all the time. I don't say like whatever. You know your character knows a thing, you know a thing. I don't have to make you roll knowledge or whatever. But when it comes down to it, I'm running reaction rolls or morale checks or like I call it different things. I use different dice. Sometimes it's just like, yo, odds or evens, this is what's coming, 50-50 shot. But that is very much become a part of my style and has actually made me more creative and more collaborative.
Mhm.
And when like shit really hits the fan, because I like games to have stakes. Like if we're in a big combat, the antagonistic game master thing is totally gone because I'm not making the decision. Like I'm on your team, man. I want you to win, but this monster wants to kill you, and this dice it's gonna do what it's gonna do. So like I can help you strategize. Like if you go over here, that's flanking or whatever. But I'm coming for you when it's my turn.
The phrase I use for what you just described, Ryan, is trust the process, right? And that's what makes it a collaborative game. You've got multiple people at the table who all have their own ideas, and as those intersect and create new ideas, right? One person wants to do X, the other person wants to do Y, and then they're like, wait a second, what if we take a little bit of X and a little bit of Y, and then we do Z, right? You trust that process. You trust your players to be creative. You trust the dice to tell a story. So that's my phrase for that. And then the other thing that you just mentioned in there, which is another characteristic or another tool in my, that I use is the stakes. No matter what game system I'm using, I'm always looking at trying to create stakes in a scene, because that just makes it a more dramatic scene, right? So that's another tool.
I can think of a couple mechanical things that I do for whatever I'm running. One is that the NPCs have to want something. NPCs have a motivation, and two, sly flourish says secrets and clues, or rumors, or as I just think of it, stuff for the PCs to learn. Because if you have a list of things they can learn, and you have NPCs with motivations, then you can pretty much run any role play thing. I think, like, that's the basis of everything. There has to be things for the players to learn. Otherwise, what are they doing in the scene? And two, the NPCs they're interacting with just need to want something. That's all it takes to be a person in a game, is that they want something. It's like, just think about Vonnegut said, make your hero want something, even if it's just a glass of water. It's important. Vonnegut said so it has to be true. Just don't forget that.
Yeah, he was right about a lot of things.
and I think that's why you can have fun with any rule set, even a system as simple as You Dare, if you're using these things we're talking about. If you know how to make a good NPC, make that NPC want something, you're setting stakes to have dramatic tension, you're sharing the spotlight between your players, you're doing those things. No matter what system you're running, you can make it a good game.
Just to address chat, Twin Steel, it is not the official starter adventure for Daggerheart or anything that's going to contain spoilers. It is a GM Jim original creation. You get to dip your toes into his world. It was lovely to explore. It felt like walking around in his mind a little bit. Fans of Landlocked Warlocks might recognize some callbacks to an earlier actual play. No spoilers.
Yeah. If you saw the Mimic Cafe, it takes place in the same world. There'll be some familiar names, familiar place names. This one dives quite a bit more into the world lore. I did my best not to drown everyone in lore before we started or during the game. I probably failed at that because, it's my world. I'm friggin' excited about it.
I wouldn't say so. I think it was the right amount because it was all relevant stuff.
Right. Yeah. It all felt relevant to our characters, right? And in fact, we often asked about the world because we wanted to know what our characters would do in this setting, right? So, yeah, there's definitely times where I was like, okay, well, how does my background fit with your world? And those two things created very interesting story elements for me.
Before we started, since we were going to be running it in Daggerheart, I really wanted to try my best to embrace Daggerheart principles and not just run 5e with a different dice resolution mechanic. And I feel like I leaned into some of the new things and I completely forgot what I was going to say at the beginning of the sentence now that I'm at the end of the sentence and I don't know where it is supposed to go after that. I was trying to lean into the Daggerheart flavors, but I don't remember what I was going to say about that. My point is, if you watch the episodes, you'll probably figure out what I was going to say through context.
like frameworks?
Yes. Oh, thank you, Ryan. Yeah. Before we started, because we were going to be running it in Daggerheart and I wanted to embrace the principles, I took my campaign world, which I wrote for 5e basically, and wrote a Daggerheart campaign frame. Because I also wanted to experience what that would be like. So I took all of my lore, all my special rules and stuff, and put it in the Daggerheart frame. And as I started out, I'm like, I'm going to share this with my players, and it's going to help immerse them in the Daggerheart rules. And then when I was done, it was like 3,000 words long, and I was like, I cannot show this to anyone. These are the ravings of a crazy person. No one will get past the first page. So I have that; it exists, and I'm not going to share it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, Chris Hill, we did do a session 0, yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't record that, did we?
Nope.
I mean,
I think
bet
in
there's
the session 0, we decided that this was going to be an actual play. I think that was actually like on the table.
Yeah,
right?
that was part of it. We discussed everything. We used the Daggerheart system, the CADS concept, aim, tone, and subject, where all of that stuff's covered. Like, how often do we meet? What times? That kind of do we have a backup player? That kind of stuff is all part of the session 0 planning.
Because it was a good session 0. The cats thing, it's good to have a framework, right? It's fine. Your thumbs up, thumbs down, like what's like vibe check? What are we going for here? It was great. And hey, it wasn't a full session's worth of time, which is also a problem. I think a lot of people's fear of session 0 is the fact that it's a misnomer. It's like it's like negative 0.25 or something. Shouldn't be 2-3 hours of talking about, unless that's your vibe, unless you're into just airing out your phobias. But like that's not fun for me.
One of the interesting things in the Daggerheart session 0 is it gives you a whole list of genre kind of words, like, exciting, dramatic, tense, and says, like, everybody look at these words and pick the ones you like the best. But what I did was, because we were doing this online, is I had everybody rank them from like 1 to 5 as the number of fingers, and then I said each of the words, and it was all very interesting because nobody knew what anybody else was going to rank. You had to do it all at the exact same time. But I learned, it was interesting to me that you guys wanted a grittier campaign than I was expecting. And that's what I learned from that, just by going through all those genre words. I was like, oh, they want serious and dramatic and enlightening.
Yeah, it's and it definitely got dramatic. Like the final episode is, I don't want to spoil anything. It was really fun.
It's intense. Maybe we should move on before we accidentally spoil stuff. But people are going to begin to get some of the answers to these questions in 21 minutes or so. But today is the last day of Prime Day on Amazon. And so it's July 8th to the 11th. But I think it's kind of like Black Friday now, that it's like going on, like all month, probably. Black Friday starts like in October now, pretty much. But so if you're interested in some of these things, Heroes Feast, Slaves of the Multiverse, the cooking book, I received this as a gift. I flipped through it, looked at the art. I put it in a drawer in my kitchen, which is what you will do with your copy when you buy yours. Put it in a drawer in my kitchen. I haven't looked at it again. The Drizzt Visual Dictionary, Young Adventures Collection. I might get this for my kid.
I just got those for my nephews, and they're cool. They're good.
Yeah.
We have copies of them in our school library.
Oh.
Huh.
Yeah.
Puncheons and Flagons, a drink book, The Making of Dungeons and Dragons, which this is different than Art and Arcana, which I have is this massive coffee table book that has like all of a lot of the art from way back to the earliest days. Tomb of Annihilation, Ravenloft, Ak Inc., Ravnica, Rime of the Frost Maiden, Mythic Odysseys, Princes of the Apocalypse. This should be like $10. It's so bad.
I was waiting for
and it's old. It's so old. Yeah.
Honor Among Thieves, Blu-ray for $13. I think, if you saw the movie in the theater and you enjoyed it, buy the Blu-ray. If you want a sequel, buy the Blu-ray. That's the only way that's going to happen. Watching it on Netflix is good, but that doesn't move the needle, because watching it on Netflix doesn't put dollars in WotC's pocket. Buying the Blu-ray does. So if you want a sequel, go. I own it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I own it on
Uh,
Prime. Like I bought it on Prime, so as a way to like support the cause.
yeah.
Hey Jim, do you
And
have a
it's a really
Blu-ray
good.
player, or did you just buy it to support the cause?
I have a PS5.
Ah,
Yeah, Blu-ray players like the ones that could do 4K are like $200. That's crazy. Like that would be crazy. But the PS5 can do 4K built in, and it was only $500. So wait a second.
what a deal!
What a deal!
If I was to plug one thing on this list, if you don't have the Ravnica 5e book, it is worth the purchase for the world building examples, right? You don't have to run the Ravnica setting, but if you can pick it up at a decent price, it's worth it to see how they used factions to do world building. Like they connect player backgrounds to factions. They have random charts of like how you can take this faction versus that faction and roll on a bunch of random charts to generate adventure hooks and adventure ideas. I thought they did a really good job in this book of basically teaching you how to world build using factions as a driving force for your gameplay. Again,
So
like
Brad,
Jim's.
counterpoint. There are like 10 factions in Ravnica. And you
That's
know how I feel about large numbers of factions. So please continue.
and that's exactly what I was just about to say, which is why I have a video that recommends you only use 4 factions, but you can use the framework and see how this book builds around factions, make your own, or steal 4 out of here and reflavor them. Um, but yeah, you definitely don't need 10. Um,
If you take away
speaking of
anything, just kidding. Go ahead, Ryan.
speaking about books and factions and world building and all, Jay Tyler is asking. He's running for a group that really likes Critical Role. Does anybody know if Wildland Explorers is a good primer for me or not worth it? It's so there are 2 Critical Role D&D books. One is Wildmount. One is the other place.
Tal'Dorei Reborn. Tal'Dorei Reborn.
Tal'Dorei. I recommend. Well, honestly, my first impulse is like, if you have a bunch of critters and you are not one, don't run your own stuff. That's my honest answer. The next best thing is to figure out which one they're into, because one is more season 1, one is more season 2. I'm not up and up on season 3. I think they bounce around between the 2 places. But if they're like season 2 stands, get the season 1 book so they don't know more than you. Because it's gonna lock you down into weird things. I don't know if I would do it. Even if I was I'm a decent Critical Role fan. I wouldn't run in Mercer's World for more than like a one shot or something, because like I don't want to argue about what an NPC would do because someone knows it better than me.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps. It was not too
I wouldn't
crappy.
run a game set in Exandria for a bunch of critters if I didn't already know. I know Critical Role very well, but if I didn't, because what those critters want in that D&D game is they want cameos from names they recognize. That's why they want to play in Exandria. So they want to hear a name and go like like Marvel fans do when an actor shows up in a movie. We're like, oh, that guy from that thing, he's in a costume. That's amazing.
Yeah, having only spent hundreds of hours, mostly listening to Critical Role, I'm not confident that I'm not going to get outmatched by some player who's
Yeah,
super into it and is reading the wiki or something.
of
yeah.
the books, though, to be, I guess, a more direct answer to the question, it's Wildmount is the one that has the 4 adventures that are in 4 different locations. Is that right?
Wildmount's the one with Frozen Sick adventure. It's the like the northern. It's more northern content, more cold. It's where I think where Aor is, where the sunken city. I think that's in Wildmount.
Yeah. So I want to say,
But yeah, it's campaign 2. Wildmount is mostly campaign 2 stuff.
whichever one has the 4 short adventures, and each adventure is set in a different location. I think it's Wild Mountain, because like the Frozen Sick is one, and then there's like 3 other ones that are set in different parts of the continent or whatever, landmass that is. Um, I like those. When I read those individual adventures, I like those, but they're all low level. Um, so, but I did appreciate that it came with different adventures that you could, um, and each one had kind of a different flavor. Like there was the one that was in like the frozen north. There was one that was like on the coast. Yeah, that was the one I liked when I looked at the different Mercer books.
All
There's actually a
right,
third,
so
Call of the Nether Rees? No.
called the
Netherdeep or whatever.
Netherwild.
There's a full
Netherdeep.
campaign adventure
Nether
thing
Deep,
that has
yeah.
nothing to do with any of the, as far as I know, extant people and lore and such. And it's fine. Some interesting things. It's pretty, very railroady.
That was the one that got notoriety for having a rival party. The
Yes.
adventure is framed around having a rival party that you could ally with or fight, or you're beating to the prize. Well, the last thing up on our agenda today is the official Dungeons and Dragons Orb of Possibility dice roller. Just looking at it, Brad, what do you think you would do with this thing? Just looking at it, how do you roll the dice?
It immediately thinks of the old game Trouble, right? You push the top of the bubble.
Well, that's right. That's what a normal person would think. But apparently, so this thing instead has a little engine inside of it, and you press one of these buttons, and it whirls like a hand blender. It goes. Ted from Nerd Immersion has one. He has a video of him. Yeah, so it's like a boggle thing, but it requires a battery, and
I thought for a second it was like a snow globe or something, and they couldn't crack the Pop-O-Matic technology. But I'm gonna have to go check out that Nerd Immersion video now.
yeah, if you guys can vamp for a second, maybe I can grab it.
I do think it's fun to have a distinct dice for death saves. If you're playing a game like Shadow Dark or 5e that has death saves, to have a death save die, that's always a fun thing to do. So maybe something like this could be just that. It could be reserved for when someone has to, save or die. That could be a fun way to do something with that. I have a D20 that has a skull in the center of it, and that's our death save die.
You know that like weird technology that they'll have at like a fancy club or hotel or something where there's like some sort of like gas in between panes of glass so it can go opaque or transparent. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I would like that. I would want it to be Pop-O-Matic. Again, I prefer lo-fi stuff. I would like your Pop-O-Matic, and I would love it to be like, you don't know. Like, I love the blind death save a la Mothership, where it's like, yeah, you roll, I'm not touching it. This is your die. Again, I have this like prophetic respect for dice rolling, but we don't know what it says in there. Oh yes, do it.
I think this isn't the video I saw earlier, but I couldn't find it. Come on, Ted.
Come on, Ted, pop it. Yeah, yeah.
It's late in the video. Here it is. He's about to pop it.
I like his shirt. Oh,
It's like a little blender.
Vertigo warning.
So
okay, well, anyway.
So you can open it up and put whatever dice you want in it, and not just a D20?
I would think so. If it's like a snow globe and you can't ever open it up, that would be bad.
Yeah.
I'm with Warplebite, boo and blah.
This
is a step too far, though.
Okay, so we have about 10 minutes until the world premiere of the Daggerheart miniseries, part 1 of 4. And remember, it's an actual play, but it's not that long. It's 2.5 hours. It's totally reasonable. And it's tightly edited. There's not a lot of boring blah, not a lot of ums and ahs. I cut a lot of that out. It's snappy. It's real snappy. You know how I like to keep things real pacey. And so that's coming up in a few minutes, but I want all of you to go to the bathroom and get a drink and then come back and be right here at exactly 30 minutes past the hour so we can enjoy this amazing actual play that is going to change your life forever. Guaranteed. Money back.
At least make
Any
you want to
last
play
words?
Daggerheart.
I might.
Yep, I'm gonna have to buy Daggerheart when I can finally access it. It's sold out everywhere, so once I can finally get a copy, I'm gonna buy it. I'm sold. I don't know if it's gonna be my go-to, but I'm definitely gonna get a copy and I'm gonna run it.
Yeah, Twin Steel, my editing philosophies: get in, get out, no cut longer than 1 second. 1 second. You gotta hold their attention. You gotta constantly cycle images to grab people's attention. Otherwise they get bored. They get bored quick. You have exactly 0.084 seconds to catch their attention when they start watching your video. I made that up. That's not true. Anyway, so in 10 minutes, we'll see you back here on the Landlocked Warlocks channel. If you're watching this live stream on my channel or Brad's channel or Ryan's channel, you got to go congregate on the Landlocked Warlocks YouTube channel, youtube.com/@landlockedwarlocks. And we'll see you back here in a few minutes, guys. Once again, for all of us here at Casual Friday, we want to wish you a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you soon.